Ontario was the first province to close its schools because of the COVID-19 crisis, and now that closure has been extended to May the 4th for public schools, to April 13th for private schools and childcare centers. And even those timelines are unlikely to be final. That's prompted a major online initiative for students. Here to tell us more about that is Stephen Lecce. He is the Minister of Education and the PC member for King Vaughan, and he joins us now via Skype from his office at Queen's Park. Minister, it's good to see you again. How are you managing through all this?
I'm doing well, staying safe, and obviously just trying to stay optimistic. I know tough times for many Canadians, but I know we'll get through this.
Okay, let's just start by seeing if we can get a better understanding for why you and the government made the decision that you did. You know, of course, that Alberta and Manitoba have decided to basically close the school system to the end of the regularly planned school year. You guys have still opted for just another month. How come?
Well, each province is different based on the situation on the ground with COVID-19. As you know, in Quebec, they've extended it till the beginning of May as well as Ontario. So, we're taking an approach that's iterative. We've made this decision point following the advice of Dr. David Williams, Chief Medical Officer of Health of Ontario, and the COVID-19 command table. Our sort of rationale is twofold. One is we have a duty to maintain the safety of all students and staff. We're doing that. That's why we took decisive action to close schools, the first in Canada, and one of the first literally in the industrialized world, which we believe would have helped, so is helping to mitigate community spread and will save lives as a consequence. But the rationale for extending by an additional month for public schools, publicly funded schools, is we want to be iterative in hopes that we can try to protect some of the school year for in-school instruction, if that is possible, if it is safe. It is
Let
not
me follow up
in the
on that
coming
aspect
weeks.
of it then. Let me follow up on that aspect. If the medical officer of health gave you the high sign, meaning it's okay to put kids back in school, but that you couldn't do it until July, let's say, would you extend the in-class school year starting again in July?
Yeah, we have not made that determination. I'm not sure at this point we have to make that decision today. I think what I've indicated is that in order to mitigate potentially summer school or an extension of the school year, let's build a platform and a mechanism that gives students access to the curriculum and to their teacher, in addition to accumulating marks and credits and ultimately graduating and completing the year. In the absence of this plan that we unveiled, part of the second phase of our Learning from Home initiative, and I think that your recommendation would be sound. Today, we don't need to do that. Obviously, the situation is fluid, Steve, and we'll make decisions in real time based on advice of Dr. Williams. But as of now, we could preserve the year, we could preserve learning, and we could help kids graduate, especially in the senior years in high school.
Okay, to that end, let me just take 30 seconds here and remind everybody what you announced yesterday, which is essentially the online learning component that students will now be expected to complete. Kindergartners, for example, kindergarten to grade 3, they're going to be required to complete 5 hours of work per student per week, primarily focusing on literacy and math. If your kids are in grades 4 to 6, they're being told to complete 5 hours of work each week. They'll focus on literacy, math, science, and social studies. Parents, if your kids are in grades 7 and 8, they're expected to do 10 hours of work per week, focusing on math, literacy, science, and social studies. And finally, if your kids are in grades 9 to 12, if they are semestered students, they're going to be expected to do 3 hours of work per course per week. And if they're non-semestered, they're going to be told to do 1.5 hours per course per week, focusing on completing credits and graduations. My question for you is, what expectation do you genuinely have that students are going to do this?
Yeah, I think, Steve, it's an admission by everyone involved and everyone who's an observer of what's happening around us in civil society, world. This is a very challenging time, and that this plan is the best plan put forth in order to mitigate a phenomenal learning loss. And so we recognize the difficulty on families and on parents, especially on the kids themselves, to have the focus and discipline and able to get through the learning materials, and on the teacher who's trying to import this knowledge with some difficulty and some geographic challenge and separation as well. So I hear it, I understand it. We're the first to recognize that there's an imperfect solution to this global pandemic, but we do believe that the next few weeks and months ought to be a time of learning. And I do believe that teachers will appropriate some of that responsibility away from the parents, try to really step up and do their part. I know many educators in this province are already reaching out to students, already providing support and mentorship. So we think this is merited. We think the with some guidance from their parents and perhaps a bit of a healthy encouragement, they will understand that this could be a positive experience of learning in a safe environment, and that's ultimately the dual priorities that we're communicating today: safety first, but with the focus on the continuum of learning. And I think students who finish three-fourths of the year in class deserve to finish their year. I mean, there's a few weeks or months left. I think there's an opportunity to use curriculum led by teachers, and a student-teacher relationship is critical in education. Restoring it and restoring all of the frontline workers within our sectors, particularly our mental health workers, and the full complement of our human resources. These people who have, heart will work hard, and I think have a real interest in helping these kids, particularly now more than ever, is going to make a difference. And so we're unlocking all those people to do their important work. And I obviously am grateful for the support and partnership of boards, of union federations, of the members, and of course of communities and families at home. We all have a role to play today.
No argument that we can't just waste the next couple of months. It'd be great if students could learn something, but and I'm sure this is not going to be a newsflash to you, but I am wondering how a kindergarten teacher is going to keep the attention of students who are little and maybe 25 or 30 of them all at once online. How's that going to work exactly?
Yeah, I mean, we educators first off demonstrate professional discretion and judgment every day about how best to utilize practices to keep students engaged. We recognize, create some challenge, but we want to make sure that the students are able to learn through some form of teacher-led instruction. And we think with some support of their parents, especially in the younger years, that will be possible. It also permits
Well,
the
that's the big issue,
educator.
though. What if their parents have to work? I mean, if parents are working from their homes, they may not be available to help the teacher do what needs doing.
Yeah,
What then?
well, that's absolutely the case. I mean, certainly a component of the population is still in the labor market. So, I mean, flexibility is an important part of this program. And so, what we're encouraging school boards, the direction is just to be as reasonable and flexible as possible, recognizing the human impact of COVID on people, on their lives, their health, their economic circumstance, and on their obligations, especially if they're essential workers or in the working in essential industries. So, I absolutely understand your point. Flexibility is part of this, making sure that we can work around the availability of some of those frontline people. The fact is, as I say, there will be challenges, but I trust educators to rise to the challenge. I trust everyone to do their part to ensure that students are learning. And the curriculum, really ensuring that we're following the guidelines of the curriculum to complete the coursework. Young people, it's observation-based learning. There's a way for educators to use their best discretion. And I actually think that for many of them in the youngest years, they'll come up with some innovative ways to not just keep the student attention, but also to keep them engaged in some form of learning. And I think that is fundamental. That's ultimately the objective we're advancing through the second phase of learning at home. It's the reason why the premier made the announcement himself, because I think it shows a whole of government priority on the continuity of learning and on our obligation, moral obligation, to ensure the safety of every child in the province. And we'll continue to keep schools closed if we have to, based on the advice of Dr. Williams. But in the meantime, irrespective of that advice that comes from the command table, I want to make sure that we have a bona fide program that enriches the learning experience, that we don't exacerbate learning loss, which is the
I
phenomena.
totally get that.
Uh,
I totally get
yeah,
that. But I need to ask you another follow-up question about this, which is, to the best of my knowledge, there's probably 100,000 students in the province of Ontario who do not have access at home to online materials. And that doesn't even begin to talk about the number of people, for example, who live in more rural parts of the province who've got lousy broadband and are just not going to have the same access as people who live in the big cities to good high-speed internet. What plans does the government have to deal with those two situations?
absolutely. Equity and universalizing access to the technology and the curriculum and to the educator is absolutely fundamental. And so what we're doing is we're working with school boards on getting laptops and computers out to people who need it most. And so there's already work being done in boards across Ontario to do surveys on what the needs are. And we've indicated to boards to accelerate the procurement of technology and to spend the budgets that they have, in part funded by the province, when it comes to technology. I'm also working directly with telecommunication companies. I've called the CEOs of many telecom companies in the country to look for a synergy between the public and private sector, nonprofit sector, working all together with one mission, which is to expand the reach of broadband and that technology. Because virtual learning can be very dynamic. There are some schools right now some classrooms today as we speak that are online in a virtual environment. It's dynamic. The students in front of you, the teachers are in front of you. The courses are uploaded. Everything's on a cloud. It provides a very interactive experience for the student, and we want to do that. But that's a minority of
But
classrooms. So how do we
can
expand
you
that
get your
province
hands on
wide?
100,000 iPads though?
Well, boards are going to be working right now on that. We don't actually know the number. I've not heard that number, so I must admit I presume it to be. There are certainly students, minority of students in all boards that will need support, and we will be there for them. The boards have already indicated that they're working on this. Procurement is underway for those that need it, and there's also innovative solutions in the private sector. But the bottom line is, technology is not the prerequisite to learning. What I've indicated is one way or another a student is going to learn. If it requires us to literally have school board bus drivers drive and courier the printed materials to a student in a rural part of the province who does not have access to technology because of their locality, we will do that. We will do whatever it takes to ensure learning is advanced to every child. And as I say, broadband is not going to be the prerequisite to learning.
I note that in an announcement that you made several days ago that you are offering support, financial support to all families with children, but in particular to the families who have special needs kids, $250 for kids up to the age of 21. And I am trying to imagine how a family with, for example, an autistic child who is forced to be home all the time, or a child with significant learning disabilities, how is this all going to work for them?
Yeah, no, it's an important question, and these children with special education needs, they deserve our support and an element of compassion right now. And their parents are working so hard to support them in the absence of having their, education assistants or other supports, and the physical supports present with them day to day. So we're very concerned about that. I commissioned convened a meeting, a special advisories, a meeting of the Ministers' Advisory Council on Special Education with leaders in the front line. They gave great ideas, one of which is parental guidelines and resources on how to best enable them to educate a child and to support a child while at home. We're also unlocking all the human capital within our school boards. I mean, many of these children would have had access to an EA, for example, while they physically perhaps will not be able to be with the child under the circumstance of the pandemic. There's often ways for telecommunication, video conferencing. We have psychologists and psychotherapists and social workers, all of whom that can be unlocked, and we're working right now as we speak to get special education support, including the personnel online so that they're able to speak to parents and students and support them while in an unconventional way. We do everything we can, looking at every resource and every person to step up and do their part to support these kids.
No, I appreciate that we're in extraordinary circumstances here, and no previous Minister of Education has ever had to deal with these circumstances. But I also can imagine that there are inequities in the education system across the province to begin with, and you're now faced with solving the problem of making sure that the learning gap between those who will do just fine with this new online system that you're going to bring in and others who will not do fine at all and for whom this will be just a huge challenge to be able to keep up, that learning gap is going to get bigger. And I really need to know what you plan to do about that and how concerned you are about it.
Yeah, no, I accept that there's an inequality that exists inherently within society, and our aim is not to exacerbate that. Our aim is to ensure that every child, irrespective of their economic circumstance or their locality in the province, English or French, Catholic or public, that they have access to education. This plan does that full stop, and it does so under the instruction of a teacher, teacher-led education. So I think that with educators doing their job and stepping up, as many of them have already, doing amazing work, that they will find pathways to ensure that a child is continuing to learn. Obviously, we are looking at benchmarking our success over the coming weeks. We're obviously going to be improving this plan as we go forward to tweak it to best respond to new students. But I think the central aim of this plan is to enable every child to learn. I'd rather not have these kids stayed home doing literally nothing. And learning loss, as I was mentioning earlier, is a phenomenon that is real. In the apps, if you don't use the knowledge, you in effect lose it. And so we have a duty to keep them stimulated and focused on the curriculum. And I know teachers will do an excellent job, a superb job of dealing with the challenges on the ground. They do this every day, by the way, in different formats, maybe at a smaller scale than everyone, but they are dealing with these challenges day in and day out. And they will do what is right to move that child forward, keep them focused, and utilize every resource of the community and most importantly of school boards that exist today to support these kids.
Let me ask you about another big challenge, which is you have opted to encourage, not encourage, I mean, the new mandate is that teachers are going to give a letter grade to students. They are going to have report cards. It's not simply going to be a pass fail type of situation. And I wonder how teachers are really supposed to do that accurately and for those marks to mean something and have integrity if there's really no if there's no face-to-face contact with students for as much as a quarter of the school year. How do you swing that?
Well, 60,000 students today don't have face-to-face contact with a teacher per se on online courses, and they're evaluated. And three-fourths of the school year have been completed in-class instruction. I think it is the duty of the education system to give a mark to a child and to perform to assess their performance over the past months. And obviously to maintain the integrity, of course, of our marking system. But I think every educator is understanding of the very difficult circumstance that families and students are in. And so I believe they will be able to provide a credible course based on the ability of the child to learn in this period with the spirit of reasonableness, no doubt. But the bottom line is, kids will learn over this period. Their educator will keep them focused on the subject matter. We obviously will be doing this in partnership, of course, with parents, but we really want to move that sense of responsibility back to the educator, repatriate that focus to the system, so that parents could, while they will be supporting their kids, I'm sure, and already have, they're able to focus on maybe some of the more pressing elements in their life, be it health of a loved one, or of course, their income or their job or the economic circumstance of their household. And that's really why we've
Okay.
designed the program to help them out as well.
A couple of minutes left here, Minister, and I got two more questions I want to ask. So if I can just get quick answers to these. You have reached, in the midst of everything that's going on right now, tentative agreements on contracts with the elementary teachers, the Catholic teachers, the French teachers. The secondary teachers are still out there without an agreement. But I do have to ask, do you not see the irony that without this awful pandemic, you would at the moment still be in the midst of a terrible education crisis, tough negotiations, nasty relationships, et cetera, et cetera? You do see that, right?
Yeah, honestly, we were able to build some momentum before this became a global pandemic, and we were very close to deals then. I think, look, at the end of the day, we're going to continue landing deals. We've just completed another one with the French teachers with AFO. And yes, we look forward to negotiating should the mediator calls back with OSSTF. The time is now to get this all done. I think the members as well want it done. And I called all the union presidents personally. I've spoken to some of them as many times as twice the last week. You may find that a bit curious or interesting, but the truth is, we're in a pandemic. We have literally lives are at stake, and it requires all of us to put things to side and work together, collaborate, and do what's right for the safety of our kids and, of course, our staff. And I'm doing
And I
that.
guess
They're doing that. And I'm grateful for the mutual partnership we're having to put people first, put kids first, and health first. And I think that's going to pay dividends in the future.
and I guess I'm in a particularly ironic mood because it's April Fool's Day today. But there was a hell of a brouhaha over your attempt to try to get even two mandatory online courses as part of the curriculum for secondary students earlier this year. Now, of course, all the students are going to be all online all the time, at least to the end of this school year. Again, do you
Right.
kind of feel like you're getting the last laugh here on this?
No, look, I think this is a tough challenge on everyone. At the end of the day, it may underscore the need for embracing some form of modernization of the system to at least have it as a backstop, at the least, should there ever be natural disaster or pandemic or something as serious as we're experiencing with COVID. But I think there's lessons learned here for the future. For now, let's focus on implementing our plan that enables every child to learn with instruction led by a teacher. And let's focus on the mental health resources that kids need today. I want to encourage folks listening. If there's a child listening by chance, I'd be uh, pleased to hear if they're watching the agenda. But I want them to reach out to Kids Help Phone, text message connect at 686868. Reach out. You are supported, and we'll get through this.
Minister Lecce, we're grateful for your time, and hopefully before long we'll do this again in person someday.
Absolutely. Be well and be safe.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario. CPA Ontario is a regulator, an educator, a thought leader, and an advocate. We protect the public. We advance our profession. We guide our CPAs. We are CPA Ontario. and by viewers like you. Thank you.